So the U.S. President Donald Trump has made good his campaign promise to hit Canada, Mexico, and China with a range of tariffs, which he announced at the weekend. Those announcements included a hit at South Africa by President Trump, alleging land-grabbing activities by Pretoria sent the global markets into turbulence on Monday. But the big question is, how should Africa prepare for the new wave of Trump's trade and economic salvos? Joining me for a conversation on this from our Abuja studios is Professor Ken Ife, a development economist and a public policy analyst. Thank you so much for making the time on the show again tonight, Professor. Let's hit the ground running. The genie is out of the bottle. Has the global trade war started, Professor?
Of course it has. The fact is that, let me give you my own theory, or what you call conspiracy theory. It is better to have a global trade war than to have a third world war. If you hear me, it's better to have a global trade war than to have a third world war.
A war is
when you
war,
have
Professor.
a global trade war, no, look, you have a chance to renegotiate. With, he goes back and forward. You have a chance to renegotiate and negotiate a few things. But if we have a global third world war, there won't be any chance to talk about anything. Because you can wake up one day and all the American carriers in the high sea just get taken out in one day. Then what happens next? It will be mayhem.
So
I think
what about the trade war? That's my own trade war would also cause problems, wouldn't it, Professor?
No, not at all. Not on the same magnitude, not on the same scale. Let me explain to you. This man has done his homework. He has done his homework. He now realizes the risks, that the risk of Third World War is so imminent and so strong. It's better for him to follow the path that he's following. And in fact, it is actually good news for Africa. Let me explain to you. For 80 years, America has held sway. America delivered peace for 80 years. Then freed all the countries, all the continents, freed all of the continents, political and economic independence to all continents. For Africa, we only had political independence. And we are still struggling to get economic independence. And this is because for even as long as 800 years, all things that can change in the world have changed except the extractive, repressive, and oppressive economic relation between Africa and the rest of the world, and the global north. That has not changed. So what has happened is that we are now getting, after 80 years, an opportunity to address that final push that will free us economically. And then look, do what he's doing. He's saying American first. Let's do Nigeria first. Let's do Africa first. There's nothing you need in Africa now. At least 90% you will not find somewhere in Africa. Nothing. If it's car, which machinery, what is it that you need in Africa that you cannot find in Africa? Up to 90%. But the fact of the matter is the structure of the international trade, policed by the Bretton Woods institutions, now keeping us as a specialized division of labor that makes us a producer of raw material that you have to send up there to be reprocessed. And in that equation, you continue to be import dependent. You will never develop in the meaning of development. So let's see how we can capitalize on this opportunity. It's such a momentous opportunity for us to take the bull by the horn and see what we can do. I can give you an example. Bosun.
Please go ahead.
We had an European partnership agreement that wanted us to sign that 80% of what we buy has to be bought from them. Do you remember that? 80%. Which means there was no design in that plan for us to do business with other African countries, or with China, or Japan, or India, or Brazil, or Canada. That is just to give you an idea. And of course, you know the situation of the Francophone countries. I don't want to go there, but you know the situation there. So we are all tied into this apron of political economy that is blocking us from becoming economically independent. So would you say,
Professor, that AGOA falls within that?
Of course. Now, AGOA is no longer what we used to know, because the tariff is going to come in there. What are we selling to America? Is crude. Indeed, that crude is going to be hit by tariff. You might as well forget it, because we're not good. In fact, we don't even have enough crude to give to Dangote anyway. So he has to go there and buy some crude. So, there isn't much to attract Africa again in the context of this trade thing. But let me tell you 3 things that are going to happen to Nigeria in the case of with all this. One is that because we are an import-dependent economy, all the prices of things will rise in Europe, all the prices will rise in China. We are going to be importing again, more imported inflation into Nigeria because we have an import-dependent economy. Now, secondly, whatever it is that we are sending there, which are far, it will have a high cost impact, so that will not help. Then, of course, there is the third one, that he is now taking away all the liberties that we have in terms of the development finance institutions that are coming from USAID, all these, and the World Health Contribution to World, all of those areas where they are spending their 0.7% development assistance, 0.5% of the 7% of their GDP in development assistance, is taking them back. So we should no longer expect handouts. Of course, Nigeria was only getting only 1% of our GDP from development assistance, but there are African countries that get as much as 30 to 35%. So it will be bad news for those.
Yes.
So, but then, as I said to you, the gains we are going to get in looking inwards is going to be far greater than
Professor,
all
that's
of that.
if we do, because what would you make, how would you describe the new normal? And that's what you're trying to describe as far as tariffs is concerned. What should Frontier Africa prepare for? Yeah, we know what we should prepare for. How should we prepare? How should we deal with it if we can't sit on a barrel of oil anymore, and as it were? What should we really do? You said we can get something done. I'm trying to find out from you if you have something like a silver bullet. If this presents an opportunity, how do we harvest it? What do we need to do, and quickly?
Well, first of all, markets and economic development and industrialization, all of that are driven by market. We have 1.2 billion market in Africa. We know that by 2050, we'll have about 29 trillion in GDP. Why don't you increase this level of intra-regional trade from 15% to 40%, looking inwards? The bigger challenge has always been finance, and the likes of Africa Development Bank and Afro-Exim Bank are beginning to assure us that the finance will be there for many of the things we are dreaming. And then, of course, you have the likes of China giving out 50 billion, which is just a drop, and then doing some swap, which is still a drop, that we can ask for more. And in the present dispensation, they will be more inclined to give more. But it's not dash. It's not a grant. It is business. Because we need those investments in our infrastructure. With infrastructure, and part of the infrastructure is the energy. It's not just road. It's not just waterways. It involves energy. Energy is the key factor for industrialization. And if we are looking inwards, it means that we are going to be looking at economic self-sufficiency for Africa, based on our market, based on the technology, based on investment. So that is where we need to, should be our takeoff point. Thinking that somebody will do things. Oh, look, if Nigeria, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire produce 72% of cocoa, and in the entire cocoa value chain up to chocolate, we only represent 7%, it tells you that the same is the same in all the other commodities. We will never be able to develop because we will never be able to find enough money to buy the finished product that we are producing raw materials for. What do? You resort to borrowing. So they will give you the loan to enable you to buy their goods, whichever way you look at it. Whether it's industrial goods, whether it's construction goods, it doesn't matter. You are going to be borrowing money to buy what you could have done by adding value to those. So the fact of the matter is that we have to look at our market and leverage our market, leverage whatever technologies we can find within the continent and start moving. It's not, Donald Trump has just given us the license to our own economic salvation, which you couldn't get in 1945. You didn't get that.
Just to begin to wrap up with you, I'm beginning to think through what more that the political side, the private sector side, using the monetary policy tools, fiscal tools, that we can begin to deploy, and very quickly, because like they say, nothing good lasts forever, and never let a good crisis go to waste. We've let quite a number of good crises go to waste, as it were, not just Nigeria, in Africa over the past years. But the window of opportunity, as it were, for economic renaissance and economic nationalization in Africa that Trump gives us, how quickly do you think we can ramp things up? Do you think there are quick wins that we can quickly get done?
Okay, let's look at the ramifications. Let's look at the ramifications on day 2. Day one is trade war. But how about day two? Day two is that the BRICS are leading half of the population on the earth and half of the GDP away from goods, with gold standards, away from the greenback.
Yes.
What that means is that if you look at the major indicators, 88.4% of transactions are in dollar, 59% of GDP, 25% of GDP is in American dollar. Then you have 59% of the foreign reserves are in dollar, 60% of the global loans are in dollar, denominated in dollar. All these indices are going down fast.
Yes.
And so we're all moving away to find gold and some precious metals that will become the benchmark. They will be our gold standard.
Yeah, so the FDB
over 60% of those are in the...
So the FDB is proposing the African,
the
African units of, the African units of, yes.
Oh yeah. Of course, we have the gold. We have the gold everywhere. We have some other important minerals like cobalt. No new minerals that form the standard. We have them in abundance. Australia and Russia are the biggest producers of gold anyway. Nigeria has gold in no less than 6 states. Ramp up the production of these things that you have, all these metals, so that some of our own reserves, our full forex reserves will be in gold, not in dollar. And then, of course, because the world had an opportunity for IMF to admit yuan into the basket of 5 currencies, now we hold yuan as part of our reserves, and we can now swap with them, as other countries are doing. Yes. So independence of getting ahead, then you can use that as a transition. So the fact of the matter is that you should just plan to run your business without the cost to dollar. If you can just plan it that way, without having the cost to dollar, and then see how much business you can do inside. We already have a Pan-African payment system that says you don't need to use dollar to pay anybody in Africa. Yes. You use your naira to settle South Africans in rand. What are we waiting for?
We made some step on that. Professor, Donald Trump is just 2 weeks in office, and we're already getting really excited about it. We got 4 years to go, so I'm sure we still have a lot of grounds to cover in the days and weeks ahead.
You know what will happen? You know what will happen? If it would have taken America 10 to 20 years to get off this issue of being the global policeman and global that, now it's going to do in 4 years because of Donald Trump. So let's ramp up the business. Let's focus on the deliverables.
Yes,
which is
for Africa. Yes, by ourselves. Yes, Africa for Africa.
Correct.
Thank you. We're grateful for the conversation as always. Thank you to the latest. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, Professor Kenny.